Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. It's April 12th, and thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. For those of you calling in for the first time, if you enjoy the information that we're providing for you, I hope you will click the subscribe button and share this call with your friends and family and anyone that you think might be interested in the things we have to say. Before we begin today, and by the way, I want to apologize. It took me actually a long time to get into the call myself. I noticed when I finally got in that there were about a half a dozen people already on the call, and I had so many calls coming in. For some reason, when people are calling me on my phone, I can't use it to get into this call, so it was a little bit frustrating, but I apologize for that. I got a lot of information to cover here today, so I'm going to be speaking quickly. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we believe to be relevant. Of course, the most relevant piece of information would be the window for the potential reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar in country. And so let's start by talking a little bit about that. As I said on my previous call, I'm looking to near or the end of Ramadan, which is April 21st. Someone on the call did mention to me also that I had forgotten that, of course, right after Ramadan is the festival or the feast of Eid al-Fitr. And this is, I guess, the equivalent of Christmas because it's a celebration of feasting after the fast of Ramadan, and it's also characterized over this 3 days by a period of gifting. So when you think of the currency, the nation would be gifting the citizens of Iraq a national reinstituted currency. And of course, this newfound wealth could be used for citizens to give to one another. So that's why April 22nd to April 21st, which is that feast of Eid al-Fitr, could be the perfect timing for the announcement of the reinstitution of the currency. What I'd like to do now is just review with you some of what's going on in Iraq. Things are moving quickly in a lot of different levels. And so I've tried to basically distill it down to the things that, I think are of most importance. So let me tick through all of this with you. First, I want to talk about something referred to as the tripartite alliance. Now, this is the alliance between the Sunni, the Kurds, and the moderate faction of the coalition framework, which, of course, are the Shia. And as I've stated on my calls, the government would not be able to proceed if it was not populated by moderate Shia, because they are the vast majority in the country, and they will be able to represent the Sunni and the Kurds because the moderate Shia are not beholden to the more radical Shia that are pro-Iranian. And, of course, Iran can't seem to keep its paws off of Iraq. But it looks as though the coalition framework has now been nullified, and that means Maliki as well has been nullified. So because of the work of the tripartite alliance, which is, again, the Sunni, Kurds, and moderate Shia, we don't have the completed work, but we have complete agreement on the budget, on the HCL hydrocarbon law, and Article 140 of the Constitution, and that's very important. Now, with regard to the budget, the second reading will be completed as early as this week, meaning there's only one additional reading left. And again, the only people that would pipe in, again, would be the more radical Shia within the coalition framework, Maliki and his bunch, and they're just too few in numbers to really have an effect. So that's really good news. Then there's a series of critical meetings that have taken place over the last 10 days. One was Prime Minister Soudani with the President of the Republic, Rashid, and the meeting had to deal with the new exchange rate. And in the notes from the meeting, it said that they were discussing how to proceed, not if to proceed, but how to proceed, and that's very good news. There was also a meeting between Sudani and the president of Kurdistan, and they again declared their agreement on the budget, the HCL, and Article 140 of the Constitution. So everything is moving in the right direction. Now I just want to touch on a couple of things that there has been some confusion about. Sometimes in Iraq, they speak cryptically. Sometimes it's because they're just inarticulate in what they're saying. And sometimes it's for a reason. They want to obscure what they're doing. There are a lot of factions in the country. There's a lot of sharp elbows going on behind the scenes. But first I want to talk on the word parallel that they use, because it's kind of a cryptic term. It's used in two instances. One, it's used when they're referring to a parallel between the official rate of the dinar and the market rate. And the objective, of course, is to close those rates. Now, we've seen over the last few months the dinar go from 1,700 against the USD to 1,460 to 1,310, and now, of course, we're at 1,132. Now, the stated monetary policy is to improve the exchange rate. Well, they were at 1190 at one point before they jumped up to 1,700 when they floated against the U.S. dollar. So they really haven't reached their objective. What I anticipate is perhaps one more move to, say, 1,000 dinar against the U.S. dollar, and then the deletion of the 3 zeros in two areas. The deletion of the 3 zeros within the price of the dinar against the dollar would bring us to 1-to-1, a reinstituted rate of 1-to-1, and the deletion of the 3-0 with the provisional 3-0 currency that's still out there. So if anyone still is in possession of, say, a 25,000 or a 10,000 note, the deletion of the zeros means that they are now holding a 25 dinar or a 10 dinar note. The other issue with regard to the use of the word parallel is sometimes they refer to the dinar being at a parallel rate with other Mid-Eastern dinar. So, for example, the Kuwaiti dinar is close to $3 against the U.S. dollar. Certainly the Iraqi dinar would be worth at least that, if not more. I actually think that we're leaning closer to $4 for the simple reason that the underlying natural resources in Iraq dwarf those of all of its neighboring countries. So when you hear the word parallel, they could be talking about one of those two issues. Another issue that's a little bit confusing is the large notes. People call me, say, well, I don't get it. Why are they releasing the new category small notes and the fills or the coinage? Why would they create a $20,000 note? Well, there's two answers to that. There is a lot of disinformation out there, so perhaps they're not going to produce a 20,000 note under the new currency. What I believe is they're still going to produce a $5, $10, $20, and $25,000 note, but it's not going to be used by the citizens. It's for bank-to-bank transactions. Many people don't understand this, but the United States still does print $500 and $1,000 bills. But, of course, they're not utilized by the American citizens for a couple of reasons. For one, they're just too cumbersome to use. And number two, they don't want any of those bills to be falsely printed by individuals and circulated. So we use the smaller bills, and the larger bills are reserved for bank-to-bank transactions. So when you put all of this together, things are moving very quickly in Iraq. One other issue. I would argue that Iraq is already, on a de facto basis, Article 8 compliant with the IMF for two reasons. Number one, the CBI reserves of nearly $100 billion USD is well in excess of what's required for international standards. And second, the UN welcomes Iraq into the International Transport Highway, meaning that they are doing so in anticipation of the Iraqi dinar reinstituting. And so in both cases, we're looking at Article 8 compliance. So all of this is very good news, and this is why, at this point in time, based on the information at hand, I really expect the reinstitution at about 1-to-1 sometime between the end of Ramadan, which would be April 21st, and I'll say conservatively May 15th. Now, another reason that this is a very good date for us is because when the dinar reinstitutes, it could come out at that float, and the taxes, of course, on the profit that we would realize would need to be due. Now, pursuant to Section 988E2 of the Internal Revenue Code, it says that the profit that you would otherwise realize from the exchange exceeds $200, you must pay the tax. What 988E2 is saying is the taxable event is not when you go to exchange the currency at a profit. The taxable event is when the currency in your possession has increased in value. So if we have a reinstitution and or revaluation between, say, April 21st and May 15th, that gives us plenty of time to allow the currency to float until the end of the quarter, and it allows us to compel the IRS to confirm in writing exactly what the tax would be, and of course the tax would not be due until April 15th. So even if the revaluation globally occurs on May 15th, we got a minimum of 60 days before we actually have to pay whatever the tax is on that profit. Now, I want to talk about our trust in terms of those of you that are, of course, holders of the dinar and these other currencies, and American citizens as well. First, I want to differentiate the trust from all of the other entities individuals can establish to provide some level of asset protection. I'm referring to things like LLCs, sub-S corporations, limited family partnerships, and the like. Now, all of those entities provide some level of asset protection. But those entities are statutory in nature, meaning they are regulated on a state-by-state basis. It also means that the state will be aware of who owns these entities, what assets are within those entities, and you will pay annual fees to maintain those entities and to produce your filings every year. However, with our self-settled Family Asset Protection Trust, there is no filing anywhere, no filing with the city, with the county, with the state, or the federal government. And everything within that trust is sealed and it's private. And there is no annual fee to preserve the trust. So that's an inherent strength the trust has vis-a-vis all of these other issues. And I want to talk briefly about the benefits of the trust from the perspective of a denarian and just an American citizen. First, by establishing this trust, you'll preserve your privacy and your anonymity. That's because the assets within the trust are sealed, and no one will know your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust, and particularly those of you that have currencies, you're going to avoid IRS scrutiny because all of the taxable events will occur within the trust, and there are many benefits by having the tax transferred to the trust rather than to yourself personally. With regard to those of you that are denarians, because of the massive taxable exposure relative to your prior year's earnings, the IRS may want to do a 6-year audit. Now, if your currencies are owned directly to you and not in trust, they can do a 6-year audit. However, if the currencies have been assigned to the trust and the taxable event of this revaluation occurs within the trust, the IRS can't do a 6-year audit because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. Third, a lot of individuals that are denarians or individuals of substantial wealth would like to gift currency or other assets to family. Now, if you're a denarian, you, of course, want to gift currencies to family and friends in order to avoid the federal gift tax. But there are scenarios where you'd like to gift individuals, but for any number of reasons, you're hesitant to give them the lump sum. They could be minors. They could be individuals with disabilities. They could be individuals that are just inexperienced with managing money. You can give to them through a special sub-trust within our package So not only will you avoid the federal gift tax, but you'll also have complete control of the post-RV proceeds, meaning that you can manage, invest, and to distribute the money as you deem appropriate. Fourth, this trust will allow you to avoid both the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. The federal estate tax can be as much as 65% of your entire estate, in excess of $12 million. However, if your currencies are in trust and the USD and the things that you purchase over your lifetime and to accumulate your estate are in this trust, you will not only avoid the cost and delay of probate, but there will be no federal estate tax. It will be zero. Fifth reason is this trust is structured in such a way as to allow you to avoid something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Very simply, you can only be sued for what you actually own in title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So as an example, you purchase 10 million dinar for $10,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for a conservative $10 million. Because the currencies were only worth $10,000 when you transferred them out of title into our trust, you can only be sued for $10,000, even though the currencies subsequently revalued for $10 million. Post-RV, there's a benefit that I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. Now, this protects you from future bad acts after you've acquired this wealth. What this means is by establishing our package, once you've acquired this wealth, or if you are a person of substantial means, you simply isolate each asset, each car, each home, each boat, each individual asset into a separate subtrust. What that means is if any one of those assets ever gets involved in litigation, it's only that asset that would be involved in the litigation, because the other assets are in other subtrusts which under the law or separate legal entities or persons not involved in the litigation. So for all of these reasons, whether you're a dinarian or not, our self-settled asset protection trust package will protect you. Now, what I want to talk about also is how this is going to protect you from what's going on in this country right now, because what's happening and what's been happening over nearly the last 2 years is unprecedented in our lifetimes. So I want to first couch all of this in a discussion of the central bank digital currency, because that is the Hail Mary that the federal government is attempting to establish to have absolute control over our lives. And I want to explain to you how we can circumvent that utilizing our trust and some additional strategies as well. First, I want to talk about the contract clause and the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. The contract clause simply says that we as private citizens have the right to enter into contracts, agreements, under Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1 of the Constitution. And it also says that the government has no business interfering into a legitimate contract. Now, I'll give you an example of what the federal government's trying to do. When the federal government decides that they can unilaterally forgive, quote-unquote, college loans, it's a violation of Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1 of the Constitution. They cannot interfere in a legal contract. So at the end of the day, they're going to lose on this one. And they know they're going to lose. But they keep, and I've said it before, they keep chipping away at the Bill of Rights and our Constitution, because they know with each little win, they begin to dilute the rights that we enjoy with our Constitution. I also want to talk about the Fourth Amendment. It's a short amendment. I want to read it to you. The Fourth Amendment, quote, "The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons and the things to be seized." Now, in my opinion, a central bank digital currency is a grotesque violation of the Fourth Amendment. You, as an American citizen, enjoy the unalienable rights enumerated in the Bill of Rights, one of which, of course, is the Fourth Amendment. Now, the left in this country was very supportive of the Fourth Amendment until Roe v. Wade was overturned last year. Now, I am not arguing the pros or cons of Roe v. Wade. This is not a pro-life or pro-abortion argument. This is a legal argument. The Fourth Amendment of the Constitution was used to defend the right of the abortion. In the majority decision, and it was a 9-0 decision, they said the right to an abortion was an emanation of the penumbra of the right to privacy, meaning the right to an abortion proceeds from the legal umbrella of the right to privacy. Basically, it was made up. And what the court ruled last year was that Roe v. Wade was poorly decided. The right to an abortion as an inalienable right does not exist. It never did exist, and we have reversed Roe v. Wade. Of course, it created a lot of hysteria. However, eliminating Roe v. Wade does not eliminate the right to an abortion. What this means is, since the federal government didn't have such authority, the decision falls to the states and the people. So the states, severally, individually, will decide whether abortion is going to be legal in their state and or whether there are going to be any limitations. In other words, it returns to the people. So why would anyone argue with that? If we're trying to, quote-unquote, save our democracy, why wouldn't we leave it up to the democratic process to make the determination? Now, the reason I bring up the Fourth Amendment is because prior to what's happened with Roe v. Wade, the Fourth Amendment was being violated. The one example I can give you, of course, is the Patriot Act, which you relinquish your Fourth Amendment rights if you want to get on an airplane. The only reason it stands is because we haven't fought it. But now the central bank digital currency seeks to basically nullify our Fourth Amendment. In short, under a central bank digital currency, our income will be known, whether or not we paid our taxes in a timely fashion will be known, our savings and investment habits will be known, and the purchases, legal purchases we make where we exchange our currency for goods and services will be known. But in point of fact, and in my opinion, all of that is none of their damn business. They're going to argue that you have no choice because we create the currency. It's our currency, and if you want to use our currency, you have to abide by our rules. Well, I don't want to get into a long explanation of the central bank system, and in my opinion, it's a criminal enterprise. But I will suggest to you, go back to my call of March 1st, go in about 11 minutes, and you will get a detailed explanation of the 400-year history of the central bank and its final move to go to a digital currency. However, there are ways we can circumvent this. I want to explain them to you. First, I'm going to read to you a bill that's being presented right now in the Congress. It's the Gold Standard Bill. The state of Arizona has co-sponsored a bill to return the U.S. dollar to a gold standard. The bill was introduced on March 30th, 2023, to define the dollar as a fixed weight of gold for purchase of other items. Upon passage of H.R. 2435, the U.S. Treasury and the Federal Reserve are given 24 months to publicly disclose all gold holdings and gold transactions, after which time the Federal Reserve note will be formally repegged to a fixed amount of gold and therefore market priced. Federal Reserve notes would become fully redeemable and exchangeable for gold at its new price. Now, what does this mean? It means a number of things. It means we're finally going to get an audit of the Federal Reserve, which was established in 1913. It means we're finally going to get an audit of the gold reserves that we have. It means that we're finally going to have to go back on a gold standard. Now, it is true that if this law passes, they will still have a digital currency. But here's one of the differences from a federal perspective. Up to now, and the last 2 years is a perfect example, they've spent $7 trillion. They've destroyed the dollar, basically. The dollar has lost a substantial amount of value because of the $7 trillion they printed. The petrodollar, as a result, globally, has lost its value. Now people are transitioning to using their own currencies, or the ruble, or the Chinese renminbi/yuan. So that's already harmed it. But here's the problem. If the Federal Reserve must establish that they have gold reserves to back the dollars they print, they just can't keep printing it. They're going to be limited to what they can print based on the gold reserves that they have. I think if this audit does take place, a lot of people are in serious trouble, and they should be. But there's even more involved. I want to talk a little bit about the state of Texas before I get into this. Texas is a very unusual state, and there's a reason I'm bringing Texas up. Every state in the Union except Texas was brought into the Union through the process of annexation. However, Texas joined the Union through a treaty. Texas was just not an area that we had annexed and that we were developing to bring into statehood. Texas fought a war against Mexico for its independence. Remember the Alamo is the saying. As a matter of fact, I happened to be in the state of Tennessee, and one of the reasons that Texas prevailed was the volunteers, and this is why we're called a volunteer state, traveled down to Texas to help support the Texicans in their war of independence against Mexico and Santa Anna. They eventually prevailed. As a result, Texas entered the United States through treaty, not through annexation. And one of the aspects of that treaty is that the Republic of Texas can return to a republic and leave the nation. Now, remember, we had the Civil War because states, the Confederation, wanted to secede from the Union. And, of course, we argued that they couldn't do that. But that's not the case with Texas. Texas is a unique state. As a matter of fact, the left in this country well knows the history of Texas and the danger that it can create. So, and you've probably heard often people say on the news, oh, Texas is going to be blue, Texas is going to be blue. Well, there was a twofold strategy to make Texas blue. One was to open the border and allow the influx of aliens, which is exactly what we're witnessing right now. And the second was to create a quote-unquote base or safe haven for individuals moving to Texas that wanted to transition it to a blue state, and that was the city of Austin, with a massive Move to Austin campaign for the left. So this has been the strategy. But this is what Texas has recently done. I try to clean up my language on these calls, but basically Texas gave the federal government a double middle finger salute, and this is what they've done. The state of Texas is creating a state-issued gold-backed digital currency. A bill was introduced in the Texas State House and Senate that would create a state-issued gold-backed digital currency. Enactment of this legislation would create an option for people to transact business in sound money set the stage to undermine the Federal Reserve's monopoly on money and create a viable alternative to a central bank digital currency. Now, let me explain to you how this would work for us. First, you would establish your trust. Now, in layman's terms, how would that work? Look at it this way. If you operate outside of a trust, that means that you leave your car unlocked, your home unlocked, everything wide open, meaning that anyone can just traipse in that wanted to. When you create your trust, you've locked your car, you've locked your home, the doors and the windows. Anyone that wants to come in needs permission to do so. If someone wants to know what's going on in your trust, they have to show cause. They got to go to a court and show probable cause that you've committed some sort of a crime. Short of that, whether it's a civil situation or even a criminal investigation, they cannot proceed. So let's take this further. You establish our trust. The federal government creates their central bank digital currency. Well, you're not interested in the federal government peering into every aspect of your life, not only because you have a right to privacy, but it's an absolute right. And we'll win in the courts eventually. But what can we do in the meantime? You establish your trust. Then you establish bank accounts in the state of Texas. Of course, as we've said in the past, you want to transition out of banking and financial assets and transition to income-producing tangible assets. That's one of the major ways you're going to get out of the Federal Reserve digital system. But pursuant to what Texas has done, you establish accounts in Texas. You only leave as much liquidity in the bank as necessary, and then you operate with your ATM card. So now you've got tangible income-producing assets. The income, liquid cash, transitions to your Texas bank account, which operates out of the Federal Reserve System. And now you have your accounts in Texas and your ATM card from Texas. So you're operating in privacy, completely out of the federal central bank digital currency system, even if the system survives, and I'm doubtful that that's the case. The reason I bring this up is to explain to you ways that we can transition out of what's going on. As a matter of fact, I could make the argument that if the federal government is ever successful at instituting a central bank digital currency, there's going to be two types of American citizens. One that operates individually within their system and within their constraints, and two, individuals that have established self-settled irrevocable trust packages and operate in a system like Texas where they function entirely out of the central bank digital currency system. So this is why it's important, whether you're a dinarian or not, but particularly if you're a dinarian, to make plans as soon as you leave the bank after you've negotiated your exchange. So basically, that's the information that I wanted to provide. Now, if the things we've discussed here are of interest to you, I strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. It has a lot of information about us, about our trusts, about the evaluation of these currencies, and I guess once the currency reinstitutes, we're going to have to be discussing in more detail some of the strategies to operate outside of the Federal Reserve System and utilization of the central bank digital currency. Our trust is an initial package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV. Our optional gift subtrust for those of you that wish to gift currencies to friends and family and control the post-RV proceeds. This gift subtrust or the process of gifting can also be used if you want to gift items to family and friends for their use, life estate. So, for example, you would purchase a home owned by the trust. You would allow friends or family to live in that home. They would be responsible for the upkeep and things like that, but they would not own the home. It would be owned by the trust. This trust, however, is an option. And then, of course, there are 8 additional subtrusts to hold things like homes, cars, boats, etc. You can always add additional sub-trusts if you wish. Now, this was the simplification of a more sophisticated trust package we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to market the trust to Dinarians, we knew that price tag would be unaffordable for too many. So by basically simplifying and backloading the trust product, we can reduce the cost to $3,000. There are several ways you can pay for that. Pay us up front. We'll discount the cost by $500 to $2,500 for the trust. That's not possible. We even have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust package to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. There will be no interest payment. The only proviso was once the dinar reinstitutes and revalues globally, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. So with this approach, anyone understands the needs for getting their affairs in order, and their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be less than the $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place for all of the reasons we've discussed here, whether you're a Dinarian or simply an American citizen that wishes to retain their privacy, their asset protection, and in terms of the federal government, just be left alone. Now, we will go to a Q&A in just a moment. Before I do, and for our newer callers, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about our trust product and why you should seriously consider at least contacting us to get our initial no-obligation package. This trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been in practice for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. He's a well-known and respected estate planner nationally. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for nearly 40 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I, have 80 years' experience working precisely in these areas. Now, under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And it's precisely at those times that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are substantial investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything that you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of asset protection trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trust Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A here, and then I'm going to give you our contact information. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. If you'd like to get our initial no obligation package, you can either go to our email, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. And lastly, before I go to the Q&A, if the things we've discussed here and these calls are of interest to you, I hope you will click the subscribe button and share our calls with others that you think might be interested as well. So let's go to the Q&A. Our first caller here is area code 810. That's 810. Go ahead.
Jim, this is Clay.
Clay, how you doing?
Fine. How are you, sir?
All right. What can I do for you?
Good. Just a couple of quick questions. One, I agree with you. I think you call it Eid al-Fitr, something of that sort.
Yes. Yeah.
I agree that that's the perfect time for this currency to revalue. It would be a nice gift for the people of Iraq. Did you hear about the delegation of Iraqi managers, I guess, whatever you want to call them, that came to Washington to meet with the U.S. Treasury? I guess they met with the IMF as well as the World Bank.
Yes.
I guess
I'm aware.
You're aware of that. Do you know anything about what they're discussing?
Well, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is they wouldn't be happy. Basically, it's kind of complicated. We have the IMF, all right. We have the U.S. Federal Bank, which is holding Iraqi funds right now, and the Treasury Department that are somewhat involved in Iraq's ultimate decision to reinstitute. The decision's going to be Iraq's. Whether it goes on the Forex and when it goes on, whether it's going to be part of the basket of Middle Eastern currencies or whether it's going to be in the IMF, what the involvement of the United States is, that's a little bit unclear, which is why they're having the meetings. I think these meetings are held because I think that the delegation from Iraq is basically saying, we're flipping the switch. So, it is what it is. We no longer need your approval or permission or consent. That's what I think is going on. And I think the dollar, in my opinion, is done. I don't like saying that. I don't like what's going on. I just feel almost as though what's happened is irreparable. We printed $7 trillion in the last under 2 years, which has really devalued the dollar in this country. And now the other nations are moving to their own reserve currency groups like the BRICS nations, and they're moving away from the petrodollar. So the United States has just lost its juice. And I think what's going on is Iraq's just putting everyone on notice. We're proceeding. You're either with us or you're not.
I agree with that, Jim. And I think with this Bidenomics, whatever you want to call it, they've slaughtered the dollar. And they've pretty much lost their leverage in the world if they're not going to be the reserve currency any longer. I agree 100% with that. The other question I have for you, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say one other thing. One of two things is either happening here, or possibly a combination of them both. One is this bunch in Washington, and from Biden on down, as far as I'm concerned, they're hot garbage. They're either mind-numbingly stupid, or they are committed globalists that need to kick this nation down a couple of pegs so that we'll get with the program, or it's some combination of both. But all we hear on the news is them doing the backstroke to try to explain the travesty that's going on. Right now we have this critical situation globally, and Biden's over in Ireland, or, what's going on?
What's he doing over there?
Yeah. I don't
visiting where his relatives came from.
Yeah,
his ancestors. That's what
scary.
I heard. What I heard on the news is he's visited where his ancestors came from. I mean, give me a break. With everything going on in the world, we got people over here, mass murders almost every week, and Biden's taking a vacation. So this is the other question I have for you. it's been suggested that there are salaries, outstanding salaries to employees. I think they're government employees that need to be paid prior to the revaluation. And it's also been suggested that this is going to happen before the end of Ramadan, right around the 20th of April. Why do you think they would pay those salaries right around then?
I don't think that really matters, and I'll tell you why. Whether they're paid a day before or day after the reinstitution, remember, when the new national currency is there, they'll exchange what they have for that new national currency, which will have the stepped-up value. So it almost, in my view, doesn't matter. Another thing that doesn't matter to me, as I say, in a perfect world, it would be nice if they had the new rate and then completed the budget, but it doesn't matter because the budget permits the adjustment of the rate. So the rate in the budget doesn't matter to me, and when the salaries paid doesn't matter because it's all going to transition to the national currency. So to me, it really doesn't matter. But
so
again,
you're saying they'll get the equivalent of what they would have gotten on the program rate with the new currency rate?
Yeah, I'm saying even if they get the old currency, when they go to the bank, they can exchange it for the new currency.
Okay, so that's not a factor then. But it seems to me they're really pressing to do that before before the remittance period, which is right around the 20th to 21st. I just wondered if that had any significance.
Well, it could just be that people need money. You know, they haven't been paid. They just need to be paid.
Okay, and then the last question I have is this. You suggested that if this thing does go, chances are it'll go 1-to-1 and then float from there. I think that's what you said. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you said you feel like it will go up significantly if it comes out at 1-to-1. How much time are we going to have to exchange this currency? I've heard 90 days. What's your position on that?
I don't think. Now that's what happened in Kuwait, but Kuwait was a different situation. I don't think there's going to be I do not think. No one knows for sure. I would be shocked if they said you have a certain amount of time. We are going to be hamstrung because we have a tax issue. So you got to exchange currency in order to pay the tax, unless you're a wealthy person that can just sit on it and let it accumulate. But that's why I said we're in real good shape if this happens on or before May 15th, because that gives us 60 days before the tax man cometh. So that to me is the limitation for us. I don't see that being an issue. They want to collect the provisional currency, which they would collect from the exchange, but the money wouldn't go directly to the CBI. The money would go to our Federal Reserve System, who would then they have some sort of a barter purchase. You remember, we still have we can buy oil at $32 a barrel from Iraq, so we would use the currency in our possession plus the currency that the Federal Reserve would collect when we go to exchange, presumably to purchase oil. Since we're not producing our own, at least we can get it below market rate.
Okay, so my question to you, and this is a personal question, you may not want to answer it, but when that thing does pop, and if it comes out at 1-to-1, do you think they're going to float it? And if so, would it be wise to hold off before you exchange those dinar?
I would be shocked if the dinar isn't worth more than $3. Certainly within 30 days, probably within 10 days, in my opinion. I think it's going to shoot up.
So you're thinking it's going to come out at a fixed amount, like a $1, and then it's going to float up from there, and your opinion is anywhere from 10 to 30 days.
I'm saying I would be shocked if it took 30 days. I expect it to shoot up pretty quickly thereafter. Remember, when the Kuwaiti dinar reinstituted, people just started buying it because they knew it was going to go up. So velocity, like an IPO, it's velocity that moves it up. Now that's it's not organic, but it is a fact, and it happens. So I think a number of things are going to happen. that will make it go up rather quickly. Now, its equilibrium price has to be over $3 because there are other dinars in the Middle East that are worth $3 against the U.S. dollar, and they collectively don't have the resources that Iraq has. So, my example that I use is $5. To be honest with you, I saw someone did an extrapolation for me and said, Jim, based on all of the factors involved, its equilibrium price should be $4.85. But I tell you what, I'm out at $3. If it goes to $3, I'm just done.
Okay, so in order to float,
in
order to float, this is just for my education. In order to float, does it have to be in a currency basket? And if so, because right now it's pinged to the U.S. dollar, correct?
In order to float globally, all it has to be is the IMF has to put it on the Forex. That's all that has to happen.
It doesn't have to be in one of those baskets.
No, it will be, but it doesn't have to be. There's a lot of currencies that aren't in the basket.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. I appreciate it, Jim. That's the questions I have for you. Thank you.
Okay, take care. Our next caller is area code 312. That's 312. Got to be less.
Yes, indeed. Hey, Jim. How's it going, man?
It's crazy over here, but I'm in a good place.
Sounds like you're in your zone.
Well,
it's always crazy
so
over
much
there.
Going on.
Yeah.
My phone won't stop ringing. My phone's ringing now. It's hard. My phone beeps, unfortunately. I don't know why when someone calls, so I'm talking to you, my phone's beeping.
All righty. So I don't have quick questions, but I have short ones. How about that?
All right. Well,
quick questions tend to be long.
Right.
Yeah. So you were saying Texas accounts. Should I open a Texas account and have my funds deposited in a Texas account rather than any other state?
No. Well, first of all, the legislation's pending. What I'm saying is if, in fact, we end up with a digital currency, then one of the ways we can, as I've stated, we want to move to income-producing tangible assets to minimize our exposure to the central bank digital currency. But if, in fact, Texas establishes a law, and other states will probably follow, where they're going to operate outside of the central bank digital currency and have their own currency, then it might be a good idea to go establish Texas accounts and utilize your debit card so you're operating entirely out of the central bank digital currency system.
Okay. All righty. Second question. Does the gift trust need the names of the person or persons being gifted to prior to RV or exchanging?
Yes. When people apply for our trust, it's optional whether you want to set up the gift sub-trust. You want to set it up pre-RV. When you receive your trust package, when you get the gift sub-trust, one of the documents that will come with it is the minutes of meeting gifting letter. On that letter, you will list who you're gifting and how much of each currency. That document needs to be notarized pre-RV to establish the gift was made prior to the revaluation. But the difference with the gift trust vis-a-vis just giving someone outside of a trust is that you'll go to the bank, you'll do your exchange, all of the money will then go into your master trust bank account. You will go back to the bank later after that money is cured, available to you, and you will set up accounts for the people you are gifting, and then you will transfer the USD into those various accounts, which you will then manage and invest for their benefit.
Okay, so the individuals that can handle their funds, I can gift it to them. Wait,
you're only using the gift sub-trust for people you wish to gift, but for whatever reason, you want to manage the post-RV money for them. Now, the language says you can gift them up to a certain amount. So if you hypothetically list me in your gift sub-trust, say I'm giving Jim George a million dinar. You can give me $1 million, you can give me $500,000, you can give me 100,000, or you can give me nothing. Because the only reason you've established the gift sub-trust is to avoid the federal gift tax based on however much you want to give me. But we created a sliding scale by utilizing the language. you will give Jim up to this amount. So you can give me anything less than that, including nothing. You don't obligated to give me anything. Now, some people, unfortunately, gave individuals currency or gave them the gift letter. So now if they don't make the gift, that person could get a little ornery with them. But if the person doesn't know anything about it, does not have a gift letter in their possession, and the language says you can give them up to that amount, you're able to give them all of it, some of it, or none of it.
Well, what if I had a certain dollar amount I wanted to give them, and I didn't convert that dollar amount into the currency? Can I put a dollar amount instead of currency amount? Well,
you could put it, for example, you could say, I will give Jim $1 million dinar, but in USD, the amount I give him shall not exceed $250,000.
Okay.
But there are ways you can do that, too. You can incorporate that language as well. But when it comes to a gift, see, the reason you have that flexibility is because the purpose of the gift letter is so you avoid the federal gift tax. There is no federal gift tax if you don't give it to me. Or there's no federal gift tax where you're concerned. So that's really what's going on. The other reason you need this notarized pre-RV is if you're ever audited, you want to be able to establish that the gift was made pre-RV. If you don't have a notarized gift letter, these weasels at the IRS could say, well, how do we know you did this pre-RV? And the answer is because it's notarized. Conversation's over.
Okay. All right, and the last question? Yeah, last question.
Sure.
If I add an additional home for someone else to live in, who's going to cover or handle the utility costs? Water, light, insurance?
That will be built into whatever side agreement you have with them. Usually the situation is I have a $285,000 house. It's yours to live in. You have to handle upkeep, maintenance, and all of that. You don't have to pay a mortgage or rent or anything, but you're going to keep the upkeep of that place.
Okay.
All right?
I'm done. Say hi to the professor.
Will do. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, buddy.
Our next caller is, well, let's see. Area code 856. That's 856. Go ahead.
Jim, good afternoon. It's been a long time since I spoke to you. I'm from New Jersey.
Yes, sir.
Good to hear your voice. Haven't really been following the dinar. I don't eat it and breathe it, but I try to get on your calls, a pre-recorded call. But I got a quick question about Iraq seems to be making progress. My main concern, just of one person, is Maliki. He's always been an eyesore. Your personal opinion, I want to know, where do you think he stands, and does he hold any power in the Iraqi government still?
In my opinion, Maliki is standing on the porch step in the rain with no umbrella. He's done. He's done politically because he represents the most radical faction of the coalition framework, which is populated in its majority by moderate Shia and nationalists who want to work with the Kurds and even the Sunni to proceed. So I think Maliki is done. And another reason Maliki is done is because one of the reasons he had leverage was because Iran had leverage with Iraq. Well, Iran has lost substantial leverage with Iraq, which means Maliki's lost leverage with Iraq. And the IMF has put Iran on notice that if you want to see your rial go anywhere, you have to behave yourself. So I think we finally got that bad penny out of the way.
Yeah, I sure hope so. He's, for years I've been in this investment for a couple of decades now, and I've kind of had I've kind of watched his behavior. He seemed to be kind of radical, as you said, in cahoots with Iran. Real quick, just your opinion. Do you think Iran's currency, their rial, do you think it may do anything since they are right next to Iraq and they do a little bit of import-exports with each other, if I'm not mistaken?
I could be wrong, but I hope the future of the rial is based entirely on Iran behaving itself. If all of these other nations, suppose, for example, the Iraqi dinar pops, the dong goes, the BRICS nations begin to flourish. All these things are happening, and Iran, of course, wants to get into the BRICS nations. They're just not going to be able to do it. They're not going to be compliant with Article 8 of the UN Charter or the IMF if they misbehave. So I'm not saying that they're going to, be good little boys and girls, but they're going to have to really clean up their act if they want to participate in what's going on. But they're done in Iraq.
Right.
They're done in Iraq. They're done. There's too many other countries involved. Yeah.
Right. That's good news. I sure hope so. Well, Jim, I hope this happens for everybody.
I agree. No one wants this more than I do. I'm talking in my sleep. I want this over.
Nice talking to you, sir.
You too. Take care, my friend. Bye-bye. Okay, our next call is area code 509. That's 509. Go ahead.
Hello, Jim. This is Art over in
Yes, sir.
Washington State. How are you doing today?
Busy as a hornet. It's crazy.
Like a rat in a rain barrel. I understand.
Something like
that.
Yeah.
Got a question for you in reference to two things, actually. Purchasing of adult children's homes post-RV and placing them into a trust. Is that doable?
Certainly, but remember, you're not really giving them a home. You're giving them the use of a home. The home is owned by the trust.
Right.
Okay, so they've got the use of the home. Now, you can have all kinds of side agreements with them. You're going to cut the lawn. You're going to make you may buy a home that needs improvements and say, look, you're not going to pay any rent, but these are the things that need to get done. That's on you. So, it's open-ended in terms of everything beyond their ability to live in the home, but the ownership of the home would rest with the trust.
Okay. Would they run into capital gains with the purchase to them?
Theoretically, whatever the market rate to live in that home as a rental would be technically taxable income to them. However, that could be offset by expenditures that they make to improve the property. So it gets a little bit complicated there, but in a general sense, yes, you can purchase homes or cars or items that they could then utilize, but they're owned by the trust. Again.
Okay, fair enough. One quick question as well that you haven't really covered, and it's probably an unfair question because you maybe not follow it as closely. But what is your take on the Zim?
Of all the currencies, the one, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, is the least likely to go, but the Zim has more leverage than anything on planet Earth. I mean, that thing, just do the 100 trillion Zim, just do the calculation, it came back at a nickel. So, I to be honest with you, if I had, my call right now is I don't see the Zim going. And believe me, I would love to get on here and go, well, I got it wrong. Hey, I got 500 trillion Zim notes, so I'd love to be wrong. But with the passage of time, what's going on, although good things are starting to happen in that country too, there might be some sort of a minimum payout to just collect the 500 trillion Zim notes. I don't know, but that's the one currency that's got me, that's a head scratcher for me.
Right, okay. Yeah, there's a lot of, I follow it to a certain extent, like the previous gentleman. I've had, purchased the dong while boots on the ground in Iraq. And one of the concerns that I have is that at the Bank of El Rashid, they did not provide receipts. But I do have my orders that put me there. And
well, hang all of that.
Say again?
I said, please hang on to whatever documentation you have.
Right. And in addition to that, have several of us who were there have traded memorandum for records. They're not notarized, but we've created memorandum for records that we were on site and did purchase the dinar from the Bank of El Rashid, and again, no receipts were provided. So,
you should be in good shape. One other thing I want to mention about the Zim. On occasion over the years, I've had individuals call about our trust, and the only currency they held was the Zim, and I literally said to them that I don't recommend the trust if the only thing you have is Zim, because I don't know. If the Zim goes, it's way down the road compared to the other currencies. If you don't have dinar and or dong, I would even recommend setting up the trust. Now, of course, since then, I would amend that now, because based on the central bank digital currency, and now they're trying to look again at a wealth tax, and there's even a tax now where they want an additional 7.5% surtax on individuals and industries that are making more than the average. I mean, these people are kleptocrats. They sit around and try every way they can to just put their hand in your back pocket. So, I'm at this point, I'm so convinced that the dinar is on the verge of reinstituting and reevaluating. I'm concentrating more on everything we can do to circumvent the Federal Reserve System, because they're coming after us, and we just got to bar the door. But anyway,
right.
It is what it is.
The Indonesian rupiah is in the same category as the dong or later on the Zim?
Here's my order: the dinar, the dong, down the road the Zim, and if anything, down the road the rupiah, and if anything on the Zim, I just see a small payout. I heard people say, but the Zim's going to be at $13. Just say, do the math on that. $13 on 100 trillion. That's absurd. It's
it is.
Happen. Yeah,
it is.
So, like I said, I have the Zim, and if someone comes to me and says, hey, Jim, I'll give you $100,000 for each of your 500. I'll give it to them. I'll do it right now. You give me $100,000, it's yours.
Right. Right. So the humanitarian projects that they've talked about, with the Zim being the focal point, is dreaming.
I think it's all this is again my personal opinion. It's all crap. When the dinar reinstitutes, I'm as a representative of Trust Unlimited, I'm going to some banks. I'm going to say, the banks involved say, look, we are Trust Unlimited. We have X number of clients that are dinarians. They have dinar and they have some of the other currencies. What's your absolute best street rate in writing if any of our clients walk into your bank with our trust? It's just, and that's it. And and then when you go to the bank, they're going to say, well, we'll give you, we'll sweeten the pie if you let our managers handle your money or you use our trust. No, not me personally. No thanks. Just give me your best street rate. I'll manage my own affairs.
And you put that, open up the account management trust with the within that bank that you open up, correct?
I wouldn't open any trust at a bank. They're the trustee. No, I'm not. I'm not. That's an institute. I will not put my money in an institutional trust where the bank or the brokerage firm or the trust company is the trustee. I would only put my money in a self-settled, irrevocable trust like ours, where you're the settler, you establish the terms, you select the trustee, you can amend the terms, amend the successor beneficiaries, replace the trustee at any time and for any reason, and I'll invest the money the way I want to invest it. And if there's a way I can do that outside of the Federal Reserve System and the central bank digital currency, all the better.
How are you able to do that without having you just get a lump sum of cash then?
We get a lump sum, and then we have to decide how to invest it.
Okay, that was my next.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay.
And you got to make a determination, but we don't have a functional central bank digital currency now. But if you get a lump sum and leave it in the bank, then it's going to be subjected to the central bank digital currency, and it's I want their grimy mitts off my money. Period. And
right.
Of course, there's our money because we printed it. It's okay, fine. Then I'll go somewhere else. I'm not playing by your rules.
Okay, and then therein lies the necessity for your conference within about 30 days following the RV and everybody exchanging, correct?
Well, that's the plan. That's the plan.
All right.
Listen, I got to move on.
Gotcha. Thank you very kindly, sir. Appreciate it.
Take care. All right. Bye-bye. Okay, our next caller. Good grief. Look at all these people. Let's see. Let's try this one here. Our next caller is area code 612. That's 612. Go ahead.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for taking my call. Here's my question. A friend of mine purchased a block of dinar, sold me $1 million. I don't have a receipt. What do you suggest?
Get one.
Just get one. Just say, hey.
Get something in writing that establishes it, because it's proof that it's clean, clear funds purchased with non-criminal funds. That it's clean and clear. You need something to show the bank where you got the currency.
Okay. I bought it from Jim on such and such a date, $1 million dinar, and does it need to be notarized?
Or you want a letter from Jim saying, I, Jim George, sold John Asquith $1 million dinar on such and such a date, and even better, here's a copy of my invoice for the $10 million I bought, from which he purchased this portion from me.
Okay. All right. That's it. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Bye-bye. Our next caller is area code 810. That's 810. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. Hi.
Hello.
This is Diane.
Hi, Diane.
How are you?
Okay. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I just have a question, kind of piggybacking off of the gentleman who was talking about the gifting, as far as the gifting letters. And my question is this, and I know that you're saying that if the money is put into the trust and you want to be able to control it that way, now what if you want to just give give so much and not put it in the trust? Just give it to them. Have your letter already, notarized and everything, but giving them the currency, so they would be responsible for that currency themselves.
Right. There's two ways you can gift it to them. You can gift it to them outside of a trust, meaning you have a gift letter, a standard gift letter outside of the trust. You either give them the currency to exchange for themselves, or you give them the USD after you've negotiated the exchange. The second way to do it is to gift to them through the gift subtrust. By doing that, you will still be able to avoid the federal gift tax because the gift was made pre-RV, but because the money is in the gift subtrust, you have the ability to manage that money. Now, you can give them monthly payments, quarterly payments, lump sums. They want to purchase a car at some point. Let's say it's someone that's in college that's 17 years old. They graduate from college with a degree in finance at the age of 21. You just give them a lump sum. You can disperse the money within the gift subtrust any way that you want. But again, the only reason you would utilize the gift subtrust is if you, for whatever reason, want to control the post-RV proceeds for that person.
Okay, so going back again, so even if I don't control it per se, but I do have the letter, I'm still avoiding the taxes?
If you don't gift them the currency, then you'll pay the taxes on it. The reason for the letter is so that they will pay the tax on the gift because they're enjoying the profit from the exchange.
Okay, so if I do a gift letter, say I'm giving them X amount, and then I give them that even after it revalues, so they'll pay the taxes on that they received.
That's right.
Okay, but as long as it's inside the trust and I'm controlling it, then there's no taxes paid on it.
The taxes will be paid on the profit from the trust for the benefit of that person. You won't pay the tax. If you give them $1 million dinar outright and it's worth $1, you gave them the $1 million, they'll pay the tax on it. If you gave them $1 million through the trust and there's $1 million in their account in the trust, that sub-trust will pay the tax on that profit on $1 million. Not you.
Okay.
The trust. You see what I mean?
Uh-huh.
The tax will come after the gain, not from you.
Okay.
All right?
Okay. Thank you.
Certainly. All right. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Our next caller is my good friend, Eddie, 619. That's 619. Hey, Eddie, how you doing?
I'm excellent, Jim. Thank you. How about yourself? Great information you're sharing so far. What's that?
I'm doing my best, but it's crazy over here.
You're doing a great job, brother. We appreciate you more than you realize. I know you're working your little butt off. Here's my question that I think probably some others might be of interest as well. Let's say we have an IRA or mutual fund stock in an existing account currently. Okay, we get our RV and we have our trust, and we RV April 1st. Now we want to move those funds to not only protect it into the asset protection trust. One, is it going to be a taxable event going, say, from a trust to a trust on those funds? And then two, the protection. You know, you've talked about when we transfer the cost of the currency into the trust, we can only be sued for the time at which they were worth.
Right.
So if we bought $1 million dinar at $70, then that's really all they can come after us for. Where here we're transferring $100,000 from a mutual fund into the trust, or they then have access to that $100,000. So those are my two questions. Hopefully it makes sense.
Okay, there's some. First of all, with regard to retirement funds, because of the tax benefits with the retirement accounts, sometimes it's better to leave them out of trust.
Sure.
Also, in some states, your homestead, the home you live in, and your retirement income is exempt from certain litigation. So it's going to be a state-to-state issue. And then, of course, you can purchase umbrellas to protect you from litigation for assets that are spilled out that are not in the trust. In addition, in some states, the transfer of real estate, trust to trust or from an individual to a trust, can trigger a tax. So some of this is going to be statutorily determined, you know, what it is that you want to do. But when you transfer an asset to the trust, technically, like you said, if you have $100,000 in a retirement plan, that is the basis. You transfer the whole 100. It's not like the currency when you transfer the currency and it's worth $1,000, and then that $1 million dinars worth $1 million post-offer. When you transferred it, it's actually worth $1,000. But if you have $100,000 in a retirement plan, or let's say an annuity that's not a retirement plan, well, theoretically you could be sued for that 100, but again, they'd have to go through the gauntlet of the trust. So you're always got more protection if it's in a trust.
Okay, excellent. Wonderful.
One other issue.
I appreciate your answer.
Sure. One other issue. 40% of civil suits are nuisance suits. Someone just wants some money and they'll go away. And they know it's going to cost you a lot of money to hire an attorney to fight a lawsuit, so you just pay them. That's why they're called nuisance suits. The reason the nuisance suits can go away is if it's in trust, they have no way of knowing what's in the trust unless they can go to a court and establish that you've committed some sort of a fraud. That means they have to hire an attorney. That means they have to spend money. Nuisance lawsuits don't want to spend money, so they go away.
Makes sense. All right. Thanks, Jim. You're awesome.
Sure. Okay, Eddie. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Take care.
Okay, our next caller is area code 443. That's 443. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. This is Gina in Maryland again. I emailed you a draft of the affidavit.
Right.
I don't know if I followed up with you today. If you could take a look at that and give me some feedback if you think that's comprehensive.
I certainly
and let
will.
me know.
I certainly will.
I know you're busy.
By the way, while I have you on the phone, let me just say this. I've got a number of calls and emails that I will respond as quickly as I can. But it's extremely busy over here right now, and there's a lot of, because we're close to a reinstitution, I'm making a lot of calls and talking to a lot of people that I ordinarily don't talk to. So I will devote the rest of this week to responding to emails and phone calls. And you'll be on the top of the list, Regina, okay?
Yeah, I appreciate it. It kind of goes, it might help the gentleman who, he's in the same situation as I am. I guess he was stationed there for service. My husband was in Iraq working for a contractor, and we have a receipt, if you want to call it that. It's not very detailed at all. So it was just Jim suggested last week that I kind of document when he was there, why he was there, and in our case, like, we do have a final pay stub from the company that he worked for as like evidence that he was employed by them. And, and so we're just trying to put something in place. And Jim suggested, that it should be notarized. And does this need to be done before RV?
If you're going to go to the bank.
Okay.
Okay. Because I actually have a relative that works security for the contractors in Iraq, and he has currency. So I'm going to try to give him a call and see what documents he's utilizing to substantiate his legitimate purchase of the currency too. But I will get back to you this week, okay?
Thank you so much. Yep. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Our next caller is area code 808. That's 808.
Hey, Jim. From Hawaii. Thanks for taking my call.
Your call's breaking up. I'm sorry. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Trying to get to a better place.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really
is that better?
A little bit. Go
ahead. What I think I need from you is a copy of the revised. I don't know exactly what you call it, but you revised the trust. And I would really like to have another letter that I can take to the notary to gift somebody, because the people that I was going to gift have all left and went home. So I have to change that. So is that the possibility that you can email it to me?
Hold on a second. I'm writing your phone number down because I've got a couple of things I need to ask that are personal in nature, so I don't want to do that on this call, but I will call you this afternoon to discuss it.
Great. That would be great.
What time is it there? You're like 8 hours. What time is it there?
It's almost 7:30.
In the morning?
In the morning. In the morning.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I get your call at 6 in the morning now.
Good Lord. You get up that early to listen to me. God bless you. Yeah.
Every week.
Listen to of course you want to listen live if you want to ask a question, but I will give you a call this afternoon, okay?
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, take care now. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay. The next caller is area code 415. That's 415.
Joyce Risings. How are you, sir?
Hey, how you doing there, Al?
Awesome like a possum, and almost can't stand it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. This is the most educational because you got questions coming from different ways, and it's almost like going to a university and getting a bunch of professors at one time. It's totally awesome. Thank you for the call. You're busy. You got a lot. My questions could hold because I do have some understanding, but I did want to say that apparently, and this is some years back, it was formulated that it was there's supposed to be 6 baskets of revaluations, and then it went down to 4. Last I heard, the first one is supposed to. I gleaned up to 26 countries in the first offerings. Oh, yeah, they changed it to offerings instead of baskets. Yes, Iraq and Iran will be in it supposedly, and Iran has to be within 20% because of the, you can't make a lot of money and then run next door, grab some stuff, and come over and get big bucks. So they're supposed to be within 20% from what I glean. I could be wrong. Secondly, the Zim, it does look like it's going to be very fruitful. It's possibly the one on the top. We don't know. Also, Venezuela is supposed to be a what do they call that, long shot. It was supposed to be out in the dark.
There are a number of currencies that could potentially, not necessarily revalue, but increase substantially, because there's been a shift now. We're moving away from the fiat currency and moving to Basel compliant currencies. As a matter of fact, they're making moves about the USD finally returning to being gold-backed. I'm very suspicious of the Federal Reserve note, and that's what it is. It's not a dollar; it's a Federal Reserve note. Since '71, basically, it's been a fiat currency. So, we'll just have to see. But I understand what you're saying, and I think the landscape a year from now is going to be very different than what it is now. And those of us that have some of these currencies are going to be in a very good position. That's why the next move is to try to the extent possible, move out of the Federal Reserve system and exposure to the central bank digital currency. But I understand what you're saying.
One last thing, because you're definitely educating. Forget the United States. You're educating the globe, man. You're international by leaps and bounds. Anyway, from what I glean as far as the digital has to do with gold backed as well as serialized. There are 42 states in the United States that's going back to the gold standard. And so it appears we are definitely going to go back to the gold standard, and it has to do with the serial number as well as the gold-backed notes, which are currently coming out, and gold assets, gold and silver, because the silverbacks are coming out too.
Let me mention one thing to you. Now, this is my opinion. In my opinion, the entire central bank system is a Ponzi scheme based on.
Oh no, this has nothing to do with This has nothing to do with.
Let me finish.
I agree with you totally. Okay.
But no, let me finish my point. Inclusive of the fractional banking, when they say gold backed, what they're saying is that they are basically establishing that they have sufficient gold and or other tangible assets to back their currency. My reason I'm suspicious is to say it's gold-backed is not the same thing as saying it's redeemable. When they say it's gold-backed and redeemable, then they've backed it up. So that's my concern. If it's not redeemable to me, in my opinion, it's not really gold-backed. So I have to see the word redeemable. And that's the only point I wanted to make.
Well, I get that. And like I said, the gold notes, because I actually have some of those, they do say redeemable in gold, or you can do cash. These are the states that are coming out with they're putting the control back into the states. Lastly, the quantum systems, which is the satellites that are taking over in a short form, but they too are in compliance. The gold back is in compliance with the quantum system that we're going into, because like you said, fiat's dead. It's been dead since 2019. And before anybody wakes up and realizes that they're dead, the UK and the Europeans are buying up all these gold notes. That's why they're always sold out. You go and try to get them, you can't get them because the euro's deader than the dollar.
That's true, and they are buying the notes. I guess what I'm saying is this. Our economic system now is a Keynesian system, meaning it operates on debt.
Right.
And the problem is if we go redeemable, gold-backed, that automatically means they can no longer go to the Fed and say, just give me $1 trillion to pay off these college loans. Just give me $1 trillion to create the battery recharging stations for our new EVs. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm suspicious, because I don't think the math works, which is why I'm saying I just want to get out of their system. I'm okay with a gold-backed system from the state. As a matter of fact, if you go back to the Constitution, I refer to that, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1. That's the Constitution clause. Article 1, Section 10, I think it is, having to do with the gold-backed currencies from the state. We're sort of like going back to the original, which I hope that's what the case is, because I don't want to have anything to do with the Federal Reserve digital currency. To the extent I can avoid it, even if I have to do without some things, I'm going to do it. I just don't want to bend the knee to these people because I don't trust them.
No, you're totally right, and I agree. The thing is, the Fed is dead. Just like the fiat and the Fed is both dead. We're going to go back to what makes some kind of sense in terms of, all the way back to the Roman days. All the way back to the Roman days, gold and silver was always money, not currency and money. But
now that you mention that to me, I put a notation here on my notes, and I didn't mention it, but I went back in there. I recommend people get a copy of a book. It's called The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire by Gibbons, and he cites 3 reasons for the fall of the Roman Empire. 1, excessive taxation. 2, open borders. And 3, rapid sexual culture that destroyed the family unit. Those are the 3 things he said destroyed the Roman Empire. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, sir.
Sounds like what's happening
what they're doing right now.
So it is. Anyway, listen, I'm going to have to roll here because my
Yeah. I appreciate your time. Appreciate you.
Sure.
Keep kicking, man. You're the only person out there swimming with the sharks.
I've done it, and I'll never do it again.
No.
You take
Thanks
care,
a lot.
friend.
Make it a great day. Ciao.
Bye now. Well, that was our last call for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. If you like the things that we've discussed here, I hope you'll click the subscribe button and share it with your friends and family. If you have not as yet contacted us to get our initial no-obligation informational package, I certainly hope that you will. The package does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed, but you're under no obligation to do so. You can review the package. Contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. You can request our package by going to our email, which is trusts@gmail.com, or you can contact us by phone, which is 307-274-4122. Of course, our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye.